Sure, you'll get your situation figured out there, Mitchell. It's all good. I just hit the live, so we are live already anyways, because I like to stay on time. Oh, there he is. Hey, what's going on? I see a face, but no movement yet. It's just a frozen picture. That's what I'm getting so far, Mitchell. And no audio that I can hear. Hello? Okay. Still not getting any sound, or I see a picture of your face there, Mitchell, if you can hear me. I can see a picture of your face, but there's no audio, and it's basically like a still picture. So it might be just something you've yet to figure out in terms of permissions or something. Anyway, I'll close up these here now that I've got the notifications sent out. Hey, what's going on, Fart Compound Channel? Oh, no E on the end of that, and it's 2 T's, if you don't mind there, Fart Compound. Bennett, not Bennett. Anyways, like I say, just giving it a couple minutes here. Looks like Mitchell's having a couple minor technical issues or glitches. It's nothing new these days. Not a whole lot new. Looks like it's pretty quiet on the old front here today. Yeah. Actually, while I'm waiting for Mitchell to join, like I say, he's just having a couple minor issues there. He was already in, but it wasn't quite working properly. But anyways, before I do get into it, actually, I should mention that tomorrow, hey, what's going on, Jake? Good afternoon. I should mention that tomorrow I'll be having a conversation. Well, it's going to be more like an informal debate with another gentleman. I think his name was Don from ThinkSpot, a contributor to ThinkSpot, in regards to the universal basic income, or the newest iteration of socialism, right? So, or what's another one they call it? There's the basic income. Well, they've called it the MINCOM, the guaranteed MINCOM, the UBI, the basic income. Well, now the Trudeau government, they rolled it out under a different name. They call it the CERB, right? CERB. Basically, where people are getting paid from government, although that's the thing. Where's government get money from? Oh, yeah, from stealing from everyone else. Taxation theft, by the way, hashtag, right? So what does government do? Steals from the productive people and gives it to the people who haven't, not saying if they're productive or not, but obviously when they're not working, they're not being productive at the time. But the people who are working are being productive. So it's a wealth transfer. It's an income or wealth transfer, no matter how you look at it. Greetings. How are you enjoying the creeping socialism? Not enjoying it at all, but I mean, I am Canadian, so it's not like I haven't known, right? Kind of known that Canada's kind of a quasi socialist country already, right? That's the thing. Parasites, just like in nature, parasites will always seek out a host. And when you live in prosperous nations such as Canada or the US, or let's say the UK, or places like Germany, anywhere there's actual productivity and prosperity, well, just like with parasites in nature, or in terms of biology, same happens in terms of the socialists, the parasites that want to live off of everyone else, right? That's, yeah, they pop up, they come up from basically out of nowhere, and they'll attach themselves to any host. And of course, the hosts that they want to attach themselves to the most are the most productive, right? Because that's where you're getting a good source of food and something that's going to sustain you for a long time, right? But yeah, I'm not a fan of socialism. And like I say, I'll be kind of pointing that out during our conversation tomorrow, or should I say informal debate. By the way, actually, Stephen Molyneux is going to be having a debate tonight, I seen, with some gentleman that's, I don't know, a hater of capitalism as well. So that should prove interesting. I think that was 9 p.m. I believe it's 9 p.m. Eastern time. I better check and see if Mitchell's having issues here. Having some serious lagging issues. Not sure why. Okay. I will just yeah, so he's saying having some serious lagging issues. Not sure why. Not sure where he's from, but if he's anywhere in a rural part of Canada, or especially on the East Coast, it might have to do with your internet connection, because it's terrible. It's terrible, folks. Anyway, I see we got a few more beeps join the stream here. 5318008. That's quite the handle. How can we make it harder for liberals and CBC to make decisions that would most definitely harm the country and Canadians? How can we make it harder for liberals and to make decisions that would most definitely? Here's an idea. Don't vote them in. Of course, that's not going to help out a lot, because that means we have to convince a whole lot of Canadians that still want to maintain the status quo. So that would be the biggest thing is, stop supporting the people that are supporting the status quo. That's the thing. If you're still getting along with those members of your family or your neighbors or your coworkers that keep voting to economically and socially enslave you, well, don't expect them to change anytime soon, right? My thing is, just, whether it's just give them the cold shoulder or just straight up telling them, listen, I don't like the fact that you keep voting for people that want to vote socially and economically enslave not just me, but my kids and my grandkids. Because really, in all seriousness, that should piss anyone off. Right? Come on. This is the thing with this kind of collectivism, right? If you want to socially and economically enslave your own kids somehow, right, by racking up a bunch of debts or whatever and trying to impose it on them, you do your thing. But don't try doing that with mine. Anyways, I'm seeing here Mitchell is trying to join back in again. So just let me give it a sec here. But that's a good question. But like I say, you got to get people to stop supporting these establishment parties. And how that's going to happen? Well, there's nothing really that we can do per se to, because obviously as libertarians, we're not going to try to force it. But, the Canadian people have soon, or at some point in time, got to get to the point where, even they are sick of the status quo. But that's the problem that we see time and time again is, they just get taken under the wings, right? And become part and parcel of the ruling class, which grows the ranks. Anyways, what's going on, Mitchell? Let me see if I can bring you back in here. Looks like you got a good quality down in the corner here. Maybe we just wait for it to pop in. It was looking like you had pretty good quality. I still don't hear any sound, though, but maybe we just got to wait a sec here. Okay, let's see what else is going on while we're waiting for Mitchell to join in here. Let me see. If I put him back in, will that make a difference? No. Why is it not working? Huh. Darn, we had good quality there for a sec. He looked like you were in good quality. No problem. I understand. Stuff happens. Hey, poop happens. Poop. Shit happens, right? But yeah, that's a good question there. 5318008. For them to make decisions that would most definitely harm the country. Yeah, and Trudeau made a really detrimental decision today, of course, mind you, to try to infringe upon the Canadians' rights to bear arms and to protect themselves, right? Not just hunting, folks. And the fact that they use the term assault style, like what are they going to do? Go to like Toys R Us or some of these places that sell, just because it's styled in a certain way. This is the most insane shit. And the fact that Canadians would support this, I mean, just think of how dumbed down the population is just because they use the term style, right? Just because it looks like it's lethal, like more lethal, but it's the exact same thing, right? As your grandpa's rifle that's been sitting on his gun shelf there, forever, right? And the kids, the grandkids, and everyone's just seeing it. It's like, yeah, that's no big deal. It's just, just like a wood stock barrel, or a wood stock handle, and just a normal hunting rifle, right? Basically, but if you put a bunch of fancy looking gadgets on it, exact same rifle, just looks different. Ooh, it's magically called an assault style weapon. Exact same thing, but because you make it look different. That's the thing with these lefties, right? And no, I won't use the term liberal, because they're not liberals by any stretch of the imagination. But these lefties, these authoritarian collectivists, Trudeau and his ilk, right? They don't give a shit about evidence or facts. It's all about control, folks. And like I keep saying, it's the same shit no matter which pile you want to step in. The LibCon duopoly is a real thing. Like I say, doesn't matter. Anyways, I'm still trying to wait to see if Mitchell's going to get in here. Impoverished. Yeah. What's up, Crew Luke? Yeah, I seen that. Yeah. That's what I mean. You can write that stuff down. By the way, hey, somebody want to let Bill Blair know, or anyone else in the Trudeau Liberals know, that writing something down on a piece of paper or having a political decree or mandate or edict, it's not going to. Guess what? There's already mandates and edicts and laws on the book that says you're not allowed to cause harm to people, right? Or to steal from people or to kill people. Yep, these things still happen all the time, right? Right. So go ahead, write that down there, Trudeau. See how that works out for you. All he's really done at this point in time is gotten even fence sitters to realize just how authoritarian these and petty tyrants these Trudeau Liberals truly are. So that's what they've shown today. Just another example. But they don't care. They just want to get in as much of this shit as humanly possible before they get the boot. But you think it'll all go away? I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of faith in the Conservative Party. As a matter of fact, I don't have much faith in any political party in terms of changing course in this, in terms of how this country functions and operates, because politics, as I've said so many times before, it's downstream of culture. If you don't change your culture, good luck trying to play the politics game, right? Something I was going to kind of talk a little bit there with Mitchell, but because like I say, we tried it. It was an experiment, a real world example of trying to create an upstart party in a short time, basically in a year time frame, to challenge the status quo. It did get media attention. The PPC did get candidates in almost all 338 write-ins across this country. A lot of people did a lot of work, put in a lot of effort to what? To gain what? What was it? Just over 300,000 votes out of a population of 37 million, or a voting age population of roughly between 25 and 28 million people. So, like 1%, right? Or actually not even that. It's like it's a rounding error in terms of how many people actually chose to support the PPC, which tells you that not only is the media still have a tremendous amount of influence, because you know how the media tried to portray the PPC, right? Ooh, bunch of racists and xenophobes, and right, you heard the rhetoric, right? But the media, they spoke, the people listened, right? The political class, the ruling establishment, it's still humming right along seamlessly with no interruptions and not even the slightest bump in the road, right? Which is why Trudeau, or if Scheer was in power, which is why they feel emboldened to continue to do what they do. Who's challenging them? Who has a chance to challenge them politically? No one. Which is why, like I say, this constant playing games in the political realm, well, have fun with that if you enjoy politics. But if your goal is to actually change the culture of this country, like I say, politics ain't going to do it, folks. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but hey, listen, if you want to do, like I say, wishful thinking isn't going to get us out from underneath this kind of shit, right? Strategies and listen to people who actually know what the hell they're talking about and are more forthright and honest about things, people like myself. If you actually gather around people that actually have true, genuine leadership qualities and know how to get out from underneath this bullshit without playing the political game, then like I say, if that time ever comes, I've been here and I'll be here, in the future. But like I say, right now as it is, that's still a tiny, tiny, tiny minority of Canadians that want to pay attention. Hey, what's going on, Howard G? Good here. Glad to hear. Like I say, I'm not sure. Let me check, actually see. Going to reset my router. Okay. He's going to reset his router. Yeah, it's a pain in the butt when you have issues with the internet. Trust me, I know all about it. But someone mentioned that if they did ban said firearm, they can just go through a loophole by modifying it, renaming it. Well, like I say, or I mean, I could offer all kinds of other suggestions, but since I'm on YouTube, you know, doing a public stream, I won't tell you. But yeah, there are ways that you could make sure that you don't have your firearms confiscated from you by Big Brother or the government, right? Like that should be pretty. Should be actually pretty evident and knowledgeable by people that who are owners of firearms. Is yeah. First of all, that's why I've always said so many times even when people that are advocates of gun ownership and they talk, oh, I got my pal, you know, got my gun registered. What the hell? Well, you know, you're giving them, you know, you're basically giving the government all this information in a way to track you and to track what kind of firearms you own. It's like, okay, well, if you want to play game with them, if you want to function by their rules, well, all right, but you put yourself at a great disadvantage by doing so, right? It's like if your neighbor was like a compulsive thief, right? At some point in time, maybe you should stop telling them where you keep hiding your stash, right? If you know your neighbor is a compulsive thief, telling them where your stash is all the time is really, really, really bad idea. That's all I'm going to say. That's all. You know, you got to think about these things, folks. Hey, what's going on, Mitchell? We got. Looks like we got you here. Oh, it's just freeze framing quite a bit there. Are you in a rural area as well? Because if it is, that yeah, you probably got
not too much. Sorry about that. I had.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mitchell. Well, oh shoot, we lost you again. Well, I had you for a second.
I'm in a rural area.
Oh, you are? Yeah, maybe try. Let me just see if it'll work in just audio with the camera off. It looks right now I can't see on the camera, but just say something. Yeah, that's odd, huh? Even the audio doesn't work. That's usually weird because usually the internet connection is usually well enough that you can have your audio only. That is very strange. But yeah, if you're in a rural area, then yeah, I know all about it. It's pretty crappy in terms of internet connection.
Is it better now?
Yeah, I heard you there without any interruption. Anyway. Hello? You still there, Mitchell? Wonder if there's anything. No. Wonder why it's not working now if it's just audio. It should be working with it's just audio. Anyways, while you're still figuring that out, Mitchell, I'm just going to go back into the chat here.
I usually don't have any trouble with my internet. That's the weird thing.
Yeah, I hear you. I listen, I have so many times where it's usually at the most inopportune times, as you're kind of suggesting now. And
might be making some progress then.
What's that? Sorry? Okay, so I do see.
I am still here.
Oh, okay. Are you able to hear me when I'm talking? I hear your audio cut in and out, but I don't hear your voice. Only sporadically, once in a very blue moon, do I hear and then when I do, I hear a sentence, and then that's it for some reason. Anyway, so I see that 5318 or 008 said that they voted for PPC in 2019. Right on. And was this Mickey? Yeah, Mickey said PPC all the way. E Sharp, what's going on? E Sharp, hey, how you doing? Cost of groceries rising. Yeah, I expect it's going to rise a whole lot more too before this is all said and done. Well, even before COVID, right? Inflation has been, I mean, especially in terms of produce and meat, like inflation has been just, I mean, that stuff that's shitty for you, no, that's not too bad in terms of inflation. But all the stuff in the grocery store that's actually good or healthy for you, well, you've seen how ridiculous the prices are for that stuff, right? So will the police start to lessen their firepower since they don't need it? Yeah, exactly, Howard G. Right? No, it's not a ban on those people. It's only a ban on the citizens, which just
Yes, I can hear you perfectly fine with no interruptions.
oh, really? Excellent. Yeah, for some reason, like I say, I keep hearing on your end, there's like I can hear like dead where there's nothing, and then I'll hear like there's a noise in the background, so I can tell it's you, but I don't like. I'm just going to shut up for a minute and let you try to just say something to see if we can't get you working on your end here. Yeah, you don't need an entire nation, but you definitely need at least a substantial portion of your population. Without it, like I say, if you don't have a substantial portion of your population on side with defending the rights, freedoms, and liberties, and I've used this expression before too, you pop your head up out of the gopher rabbit hole, right? And put yourself out there in the sights of the authoritarians, and you're the one that they're going to go after first. This is the problem. And they know that. That's the thing. The authoritarians realize that, which is why they make it really, really difficult and massively disincentivize anyone from daring to be that first one to speak out or stand up. And that first person that does stand up or speak out, what do? Oh, they come down heavy on them, right? To send a message. Don't ever do that again, right? Which requires people that have a tremendous amount of courage to do so. And not just courage, but also that's the other thing too. We have to make these calculations. I have the courage to do that. But when I realize that most of my Canadian citizens or my peers would be more than willing to just say, okay, that's it. I'm sitting down, shutting the hell up. And yeah, who cares what happens to Bennett? It's like, yeah, don't expect me to be the one step out front. I'm not going to be cannon fodder for anybody, right? Sorry. No, name's Cupid, not stupid. But that ultimately is the problem, which is why you can't have like an individual or a small group of people. No, the only way any of this can happen is if large, like huge masses of people, right? Like basically, if you seen what happened when they were protesting authoritarian regimes, let's say in Egypt and places, yeah, you see, to the tunes of tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. Then at that point in time, right? Yeah, well, even in Canada, you wouldn't even need hundreds of thousands. But yeah, if you had tens of thousands of people, let's say, protesting and railing against this kind of shit, well, they'd backtrack immediately. Why? Because there's not enough cops or military or any of these mindless enforcers or order followers to quash down or destroy the Canadians' ability or willingness to stand defend their rights and freedoms. But if you're only a small group, yeah, they'll just pick you off one by one or as that small group. And like I say, send that clear message to the rest of the Canadian people to sit down, shut up, and do exactly what we tell you, right? Anyways, like I say, I'm going to try to be quiet here for a minute because I'm really hoping to be able to have this conversation with Mitchell. Actually, it looks like his mic's. Did you see that your mic's muted? Oh, there we go. Let me see if I can hear you now, Mitchell. Damn. Is anyone else? Someone in the chat just mentioned there. Can anyone else hear Mitchell? Is it just me that can't hear him? Can someone just reply in the chat? Because I'm not here now. I do see he has his microphone muted at this point in time, but even when he doesn't, does anyone hear his audio? Yeah, name's Tucker, not Sucker. Oh, yeah, exactly. What does this douchebag in Ottawa finally go down the? When does this douchebag in Ottawa finally go down the road? Jesus Christ, go down the road. Donald Duck, or I mean, sorry, not Donald Duck. Bugs Bunny, sure. I had a brain fart there for a sec, Charles Vincent. Not sure what you mean by going down the road there. Canada's elderly scared population held down by a virus with number exploited to scare people. Okay, I'm just scrolling back up through here. See if... Yeah, well, it seems that way, right, Micah? I mean, are Canadians like showing their willingness to push back against this? This is, to me, it's the message, right? It's the signal that I'm receiving, right? I'm like a big antenna out here, and it's like, well, the signal I'm receiving from Canada is, yeah, they're more than willing to keep the rest of us, pinned down, locked down, and suppressed, oppressed, and basically left with no means to defend ourselves. Like I say, this is all that's taken place are the very kind of things that all authoritarian regimes around the world have ever done. Disarm the people, control them, like surveil them, spy on them, discredit anyone that challenges the state, right? Use the media to propagandize or stereotype people that challenge the state as bad or evil people. All those things, everything. Like I say, the playbook, it's like, damn, every rule in the playbook for the authoritarians, for the collectivists, like, yep, the Trudeau liberals, like, check. I mean, they've checked all the boxes, folks. So what do you, like I say, at this point in time, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Like when they're literally coming to your door, right? First, they came for what? So I said nothing because I wasn't, right? Well, at some point in time, right? I don't know. Like I say, I don't know what the hell's wrong with this country. Other than that, it's pathetic. It's so pathetic. People have placed themselves in such a position that they can't stand for themselves or for anything because they're, like I say, most of them are so indebted they lose everything they had. Like, what a bunch of fools. What a bunch of fools in this country to put themselves in such a precarious situation that the government can do this to them, and they basically are in no position to stand in defense of their liberties. What a pathetic country we live in, folks. I still like Tim Moen as a leader. Oh, in terms of leaders, in terms of a leader for a political party, Tim Moen is head and shoulders above everyone else out there. Everyone, even Maxime Bernier is like a really, really distant second place. And not just in terms of, I mean, first of all, Tim Moen is a philosophical libertarian, right? He'll run in the political party, but he'll tell you himself, like, hashtags, taxation and stuff. Me and Tim agree with each other on everything. Well, I mean, it's not even a matter of our opinions. It's just we extrapolate what the non-aggression principle, self-ownership, and property rights entails. And like I say, you just don't give people any contradictions or ability to escape those rules or those principles, right? And if you do that, then yes, you become a full-on philosophical libertarian rather than trying to play politics. It's this kind of play politics, which is what Maxime Bernier tried to do, which is why I think why it failed. You have to be much more, like, he was a little bit brave and bold, but no, you have to go all in. You have to be willing to be 100% honest with the Canadian people. If you want, like I say, if you want to shift the culture, you have to be as bold as humanly possible, as someone like me. And unless you find someone in a political party that's willing to step up and be as brave and as bold and as honest and forthright as me or Tim Moen, then yeah, they're going to fail every time and miserably. Okay, so let's see if Mitchell's back here. Here, let me take this comment off the screen. Go ahead, Mitchell. Looks like things might be better now.
I don't know. How are you guys?
Right on. Hey, how'd you pull that off? Looking.
I ditched the laptop and used my tablet.
Oh, right on. Well, whatever you did, it's working much, much better. Maybe the laptop just has a, I don't know, maybe a crappy router or modem or something that I don't know. You never know.
It's pretty old.
Is it? Oh, okay. Yeah, that could very well, because yeah, this looks like it's working out the very greatest. What's this popping up here? Oh, McAfee. Stupid McAfee popping up here on the computer. Why isn't it closing now? What the? Security news warning. Oh, never mind. It went away now. a stupid thing that come with the computer anyways. So anyways, Mitchell, it's great. Like I say, I've just been rambling on. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. If you've ever obviously watched my videos, you probably already realized that's all right. He can handle it because I could ramble on for hours without anyone having to poke or prod me anyways. But I'm really happy to have this conversation with you today. And like I say, as a founding member of the PPC myself, I too, and I'm sure you would share the sentiment that, you know, quite disappointed in this, but to me, it was okay. The political venture, you know, it kind of turned out the way I kind of expected, but like I say, I was more than willing to try it out and see how it would work, try it on for size, right? But the big thing to me that I found most disturbing is, okay, I get it. The political venture didn't work, right? So, but that's a one-time thing, like where you show up, like this is what I think is most disturbing to me when I deal with most Canadians is that one time showing up and checking a box. Like, if you think that's how you change your goddamn country, or if that's how you gain your freedom, then, like, I don't know. To me, it's like trying to explain to you know, a religious fundamentalist that God isn't real. It's like, we're never going to get anywhere here, folks. We might as well just walk away because we're never going to get anywhere. And to me, like, that's the part that, like I say, what really concerned me was because as soon as the voting was over, the election was over. Like when I was doing it, like I was trying my best to interview as many as you've probably seen. I tried to interview as many of the PPC candidates or support as many people. I tried to spread the message as much as I can. And at the time, it was seemingly, at least from my analytics on my own YouTube channel, it seemed to be like I was getting 2,000, 3,000. I mean, I would get the odd video that would get 10 or 20,000, but most of the time there was at least a couple, 2,000 or 3,000 people. Started out in the hundreds, but it looked like there was progression in terms of at least getting more and more people understand what freedom and liberty is all about instead of just the politics. Because to me, it's like the politics is the easy part. It's getting people to actually understand what freedom is all about is the hard part. But it seemed like at least we were traveling in that general vicinity or along that path. As soon as the vote ended, as soon as the election was over, I seen my own, and I pay attention to my analytics, which is actually a tough thing when you have a YouTube channel because that can drive you nuts all on its own. But and it's not just the views, but it's even the engagement on my social media pages. So most of the people that were fellow supporters, candidates, members have basically, like I said in my comment to you on your post, or even when we were talking back and forth in the messages, is like everyone seemingly abandoned me. It's like, well, we're not going to get anywhere if everyone just like, what? Well, you just forget about it now, and what, you wait for another 4 or 5 years? Because if that's the case, then to me, if that's what the PPC or the supporters of the PPC are about, it's like, I'm not even going to waste my time anymore with the PPC, because you can't just rely on showing up or during campaign time to get this kind of knowledge out to the Canadian masses. Anyways, you go ahead and respond and take as much time as you want there, Mitchell.
No, I've noticed that even on our pages on Facebook, like our engagements are down from the like average supporter. But in terms of the party itself, like headquarters, actual electoral district associations, we are actually growing that way. I'm actually the provincial coordinator for Nova Scotia and PEI. Things are moving in the right direction. There's a lot of things coming. It's just a matter of getting that message out to everyday people. And I think we're going to be, once this COVID pandemic ends, I know in Nova Scotia at least, we'll be having our annual general meetings at some point. And then hopefully we can get the message out. And it's not just during election time. I think anyone that's a member of any party, whatever party you support, it's not just, the 45 days before the election and the election. It's important, whatever values you have, whatever they may be, to share those every day, whether it's on, Facebook or Twitter or whatever platform you use. Talk to your friends, talk to your family. I think that's the main factor in doing this.
Right. So I guess, and I know it's going to be difficult to ask you this question because it would mean that you would have to have a lot of probably insider knowledge that maybe you do or maybe you don't. But to me, so I'm just going to run through like my thought processes during the whole thing, and then I'll get to the question. So to me, like, if you want to get, like I say, the culture is what I recognize instinctively, and because I grew up in this country, and I've traveled across this this entire country. I actually, as a truck driver, I've been all, and I'm the kind of person that'll talk with anybody. And what I recognize is it's an education, it's an information, it's the lack of knowledge in regards to what even being free is. Like that's what is absent through when you talk to most Canadians. It's liberals versus conservative, but it's like, okay, well, I get it. So I can go and talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Montreal Canadiens, but like when we're talking about here, we're not supposed to be talking about playing team sports here. We're supposed to be talking about, using the political process or the bully pulpit or even using media to start talking about big ideas, right? And it's the ideas that are based on these principles, which is, to me, and it seemed Maxime, and even a lot of people have said along the line, or when I was getting to know about Maxime in the party, is he would consider himself libertarian. Now, I didn't hear him say that or reference himself too much in terms of libertarian. A lot of time it's conservative. It seems like in reality now, like I say, the hindsight's 2020, and I've had the time to really reflect on things. It almost seems to me, which if it's the case, then I'm kind of, once again, I'm left with no tribe, but. Is it that, Maxime, do you believe that the PPC is a party that's looking to be just a conservative alternative, or do they actually care about talking about like the philosophical aspects of what it is to be? Because to me, that's the thing. And I heard people say like he's trying to do the Ron Paul thing it's like, well, Ron Paul was the one that would talk about the philosophical principles and basically say, I shouldn't even be in a position. I've heard Ron Paul himself say like taxation and stuff, and he would even identify as an anarchist. Where it seems like Maxime still wants to play the politics, and it seemed like, as far as I was concerned, anyways, the libertarian thing was. Now, let me just, like I said, I'm just going to run this off real quick. So when he was running for leadership, the way it broke down, well, all the way to the last vote, Maxime was in first place. And how it broke down, from what I understood, based on all the reporting and other people that were actually there, it was basically that it was the milk cartel that put him over the threshold, the dairy cartel, that gave Scheer the ultimate win. But Maxime, the reason why he was winning most of it, because not only did he have a fair amount of, obviously, the conservatives supporting him, but a lot of people that would identify themselves as libertarians. So it seemed to me, for him to have a chance, if he just went after the conservative base itself, it wouldn't work. Scheer could have probably got that, or whoever else would have. But it was trying to reach out to the libertarians, which, as if you're a libertarian, then that means you can also include people that would identify as classical liberal, or liberals in the classical sense, or genuine small c conservative. So it created an era or a situation where you could expand on the tent and get a lot of people that may not necessarily want to identify as like, a conservative party or a card carrying conservative. And to me, I was like, fine, if we were helping each other out, that's fine. But to me, I was at least hoping that he would want to adopt, because to me, it's the libertarian messaging that's the thing that's going to change the culture. Politics, like I say, having a 10-second or 30-second soundbite in terms of politics or policy, every political party does that. To challenge the status quo at this point in time, you have to be brave, bold, and you have to be able to put forth your principles and unbridled stand in defense of them. And the fact that me as a libertarian seem to always be kind of kept on the back burner, used as a, to help, like I say, bring more people to the party. I get that aspect of it, but it doesn't seem like I say, the supporters of the PPC or even Maxime himself really cares too much for libertarians, to be honest with you.
I mean, our four founding principles are, very libertarian based: personal responsibility, individual freedom, fairness, and respect. I've heard a lot of people from like CTV address Maxime as a libertarian. I think where most libertarians aren't established politicians, normally they don't kind of come out and say they're a libertarian. I think Max is a libertarian. But I think the issue that we had in terms of getting the message out that the established parties do have is very large, deep pockets. And they have big teams, where we have small teams. I know here in King's Hants, you actually interviewed Matthew Southall shortly before I was his campaign manager and strategist. We had a fairly small team. We did the best we could. And that's the thing, you're going against, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you don't have it. Advertising's not cheap. Signs aren't cheap. But no, I do think the majority of people, at least that I'm close with in the People's Party, do have a very libertarian minded aspect. I know Al Muir in Central Nova does, Bill Archer in Cumberland Colchester, Rob Monk, they ran in last election. In South Shore St. Margaret's, we were pretty much all very much libertarians.
Well, I know Matthew, like, especially out of all the candidates that I did interview and talk to on a couple of occasions, seems like a very wise, astute young man, and he seemed to have the right principles. He definitely, I know he would identify as libertarian himself. And like I say, I was more than willing to help him in as many ways as humanly possible. But to me, like I say, that you're in one riding, and I get that you're probably of the same ilk and have that more libertarian leaning. But like I say, in terms of the like the top down management of the party, I was talking to shoot, I can't think of that guy's name. He was the one that was at the actual headquarters. What was his name again now? Jeez, I won't be able to think of it right now. Seemed like I don't know. He seemed like, well, when I was talking to him, he seemed like this younger gentleman, but I don't know. He didn't seem to have, see, like I say, it just came across to me that they were more concerned with playing the political game than actually, talking about these very important principles. Because if you don't, like, to me, the way it works is if you're not completely forthright and honest, then as soon as the population of the country realize that you're just another political party, well, how that they become very comfortable with the devil they know, right? So it's very difficult to even get people to even want to shift their allegiance, their alliances, if they're already political in nature as it is. But what I understand, and like even people like Ron Paul realize that, and it caught the establishment down in the US off guard tremendously because it happened so much beforehand. But yes, like what you're talking with money, yes, prior to the internet age, yeah, for sure. Good luck challenging the status quo. But to me, I don't even think these are plausible excuses, because like I say, it's $100 on a Facebook ad can actually get your information out there to, what maybe historically would have cost tens of thousands of dollars in the old dinosaur media, right? So it's not that you need a tremendous amount of money, but what you do need is first of all, a very strong core principles, which to me was and I like the principles, right? Personal responsibility, fairness, respect, and individual freedom. Those were pretty good core principles. But at the same time, you have to, when people talk about these things, you have to be able to expand on so that they understand the concepts in their mind and not just think that they're hearing an actual, like a political talking point. And to me, that's a lot of times it seemed like it was a political talking point they were getting. Now, for me, I understand why, if you're running as the politician, like if Maxime himself doesn't want to say those things because, the media will use them as the got you. And I mean, we already seen anyways, even by, and he didn't put up the billboards, but even by associated with the billboards, the label, like, oh, he's racist, anti-immigrant. I'm totally understand why, like for the PR side of things where Maxime might want to, but I just couldn't understand, because when I look out there on the landscape in Canada, in terms of actual Canadians, right? Who the hell out there is any more vocal, knowledgeable, willing to put themselves, like, I just don't, no one seemed to want to reach out other than, like I say, the odd candidate. And to me, a lot of the times it seemed that they just wanted to have the libertarians that normally watch my videos, and hopefully they would see them as candidate and go vote for them. But it didn't seem like anyone in the party. And like I say, I was talking to that young, or whoever that guy was, if I could remember his name. He was like the main dude in the headquarters there anyways. What the hell was his name? But basically it seemed like they didn't give a shit about whether, like, people like myself, and I mean, to me, it's not about me personally. If I could look out there on the Canadian landscape and there was someone else, like Tim Moen actually even offered to help kind of join and combine forces with the PPC. And I mean, Tim Moen already went through enough crap of his own to become the leader of the Libertarian Party of Canada, which is not much fun on its own, because you're basically overlooked and ignored, even worse than the PPC, right? Because most of the people in the media have never even told Canadians that there's such thing as the Libertarian Party of Canada. So you have a lot of even just PR that you would have to do just to get people to understand there is. But there was people like Tim Moen, and then, like I say, between Tim and myself, two people that, like I say, in terms of if you want to get people inspired and talking about these amazing principles, is both times he said basically to Tim Moen, and he said or no, he didn't say to me, but they basically wouldn't even, I guess, wouldn't talk to me or whatever. But it seems to me, it seemed like he wanted to soak up the spotlight and have so much control over the messaging. I personally, now this is just me speculating, I can't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure what it sounds like to me is when you're playing that political game and you have to restrict what you are willing to say because you have to play the politics, I think he would be, it came across to me that he would have been fearful that someone like Tim or myself would up him, right? One up him in the fact that, yeah, we're not just going to say that tax should be 10%. Like, we're going to say things that are completely universal. In other words, like that taxation is theft. And that when you're talking about, immigration, bring up the very real fact that this is all about economically enslaving entire generations of people. And it's not just the people that are in the country today, but, the ones that are pouring across the border, that are having access to all these things, and not just in terms of wages and jobs, but the economic prosperity of the Canadians are already, like, there just wasn't enough bold talking or discussion in regards to this. It was still seemed to, which is why I think why the PPC, it got its 300,000 supporters, but that would probably been people that are already in Canada that sit on that sideline year in, year out, or every election, because they are disenfranchised and they just want to get rid of the establishment. So I think that 300,000, because even Tim has said prior to the PBC that you could get upwards in and around that. So I think there is probably about 300,000 Canadians, but we need to get a whole lot more than 300,000 Canadians. And like I say, you have to be able to incorporate or bring people that are brave and bold enough to say the things that need to be said. And I don't know why he didn't want to take advantage of using people that were willing to do so. I guess that's my question.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know it being a new party, and there were people that kind of stood up and said some important things, but I kind of think, back to Maxime being really the only really established political person we had running, except for there was a couple former MPs that did run. I don't think it's so much the message that was being delivered or how it was delivered was the issue. I think the issue is the left. Like in high school, for example, I was part of a young conservative group in high school. My high school, it's gone. Like, I know people have brought up conservative issues or libertarian ideas at my old high school. Mm-hmm. They get letters sent home saying they can't say it. There's no conservative groups in universities anymore. Like, my local universities don't have one. And the moment you bring up right-wing ideas or libertarian ideas, you're automatically labeled as a racist, or you're xenophobic, or, as soon as you bring up immigration, it's race. But, there was never anywhere in our immigration policy that mentioned race. It was, 100 to 150,000, and 50% of them are going to be economic immigrants. There's no race involved.
Well, and I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I just that you brought up a point that, once again, it's actually kind of where I'm getting at with this, and I'm thinking you're kind of verifying what I suspect all along, is because you said libertarian or conservative ideas. That's the thing with a libertarian, which is why I don't know how I can emphasize this any more than it is if you try to put libertarians on the right side of the political spectrum, I don't know how that works. I just, other than playing politics, because like I say, now if you want to take like social or economic policy, right, then you can play the right. But in reality, if you're like Antifa, put it this way, I despise a lot of things that people stand for, but when you hear what the Antifa groups are railing against, now the remedies, yeah, like not a fan, or their tactics, not a fan. But if you listen to the Antifa group or the disenfranchised people on the left, libertarians are right there with them 100% against the big government, and in terms of like anything in terms of oppressing people in the LGBT community or minority. So what it is a libertarian, because the principles don't fall left or right. So whether they're social or economic in nature, we're just completely honest and forthright with the principles. So, self-ownership, it means I have, ownership over me and what I produce. So economically, taxation is that. But on the same side of that, the liberals or the people on the left see a lot of our social policies completely in line. But that to me was, I think that's why, as a libertarian, that if the party, and if you're, if you're honest, and if Maxime was forthright, then like I said, nothing even against it, because I actually believe that this country should have a genuine conservative party for those who are conservatives, because there should be a party that represents their ideals, right? And in this country, there isn't. Like, if you're a genuine conservative, even the Conservative Party of Canada has basically rejected. They won't talk about abortion, right? They won't talk about so basically, for the conservative mind, especially the social conservatives, they have, I get it, they have nowhere to go. So, but to me, if the PPC wanted to be a conservative alternative, which does seem to be the case, because a lot of the people do identify, like I say, on the right side of the political spectrum, I totally get that. But to me, this is the area where I don't know how you do that as a small startup party without, like I say, if Maxime, instead of taking the conservative moniker, if he had labeled himself as a libertarian, then, like I say, and ran with what libertarians stand for, used those principles, then, like I say, because to me, without reaching out to the young, especially the younger millennials that are disenfranchised with the system, that are on the left right now, if you reject them, then, like, well, they're just going to keep seeking some kind of collective tribe that they want to pivot to, and they'll just find whatever they find is closely aligned with them, which is obviously going to be a detriment, because they're basically perceiving the Liberals or the NDP, right? Which is like, I mean, come on. And, a lot of Canadians, let's face it, in Canada, a lot of Canadians would identify as liberal, but even the younger people would think, when they're identifying as liberal, what they would really be identifying is the liberal of the old style, the classical liberal that actually cared about free. But what it is they see the branding of liberal, and they're like, well, I'm definitely not going to agree with social conservatives, which is why, like I say, to me, for the PPC, and because he called it the PPC, it should have been kept as where there is no side to this party. It's we care about, and it was the fact that I did see, and basically you're kind of alluding to it yourself, even. It did seem to be more of right wingers and trying to reach out and appeal to conservatives in this country. And I get it. And there are conservatives in this country, but if you're going to try to appeal to just conservatives in this country, good luck. Like, that's all I'm saying, right? Because they're becoming a dying breed, to be honest with you.
Well, I think the reason that back to the younger generation, they're not given. I mean, I know it's like social media is free, but you look at high schools and universities, they're not given a chance to even express their conservative views or libertarian views, and then it's instantly silenced.
Yeah, I agree. Continue on there.
But I think, no, we had executives in the EDAs that were, former NDP, former, even some Green Party people that come over. I have faith in the party, that's why I'm the provincial coordinator for Nova Scotia and PEI. But I think, the party is going to grow. We're going to gear up for the next election, and I think we're going to win some seats. I think Max is going to get back in the House of Commons. I think a few other people are going to get back. It's a message that has to get out. We can't just, toe the same party line that's been going on forever.
Right.
And I don't think the Conservatives are even conservative anymore. They've gone, to the center. They, like you said, they won't discuss abortion. They won't discuss gay marriage. There's a lot of things they won't talk about. To me, gay marriage, whatever makes you happy. The government should not be involved in marriage, and the government should not be involved in what goes on in your bedroom.
Exactly. Well, I agree 100% with that. But that to me is the most important message that has to get out there. And when you're talking about now, what I would think after COVID, and especially after the Liberals and what they're doing with all this power grab that they're doing, I think this might have. My fear is that if the PPC or any party that's challenging the status quo, if they're waiting for something like this to happen so that people pivot towards that will achieve you some success, but then you haven't ironed out the wrinkles in terms of what you actually want to do in terms of a shift and effect in the culture. To me, like I say, if the political parties want to have any success in terms of promoting libertarian values, not just conservative, because like I say, if you're going conservative, to me, it's like the guy that's got the horse and he's offering a ride into town back in the 1920s or 30s when the Models A, and it's like, now they got better ways to get to town now. So I just think as a conservative, and I'm nothing against conservatives, like I say, in some aspects, but I just think if you're playing the conservative game, it's a failing endeavor, because you'll end up with actually a lot of people that might say they're conservative, but they're just different iteration of authoritarianism, right? More of the law and order, or the, you know, the white supremacist types, or so you got people, which is why to me in this modern era, like if there's going to be any pretense of liberty going forward in North America, it has to be expanded upon and bettering the U.S. founding fathers example, which would already been considered classical liberal or libertarianish in terms of how they set up. So you can't even play like as if, because that's the thing, the younger people today, even if they identify as conservatives themselves, they are even wise enough to recognize you're never going to go back to like what a conservative, which to me, libertarianism is the future in terms of before we get out from underneath the state. I think in the future, we're not even going to need the government to dictate and control our lives. But in the interim, in this time frame where we're kind of going through this adolescent stage and we're kind of trying to achieve adult mentality or psychology in terms of how we interact and engage with each other in the social or economic realm, is you got to be able to put that the emphasis on the self-ownership, the property rights, the non-aggression. Because once you hear, like I say, once you tell young people that, rather than just, you know, policy positions on a particular issue, once you've given people that information, then like I say, even people that identify on the left will be like, well, yeah. Because I mean, and Maxime, I brought this up, not to him, but people that put it in his ear about the whole thing with the, you know, bailing out the banks. That was a perfect example of where you could get a lot of these young people or crony corporations, or even with his supply management. I'm sure he could probably have reached out to some of the lefties because they're not fans of these crony corporations either, right? So, but because I listened to and it wasn't how the media portrayed it, because I knew the media was going to portray the PPC negatively, but I didn't hear much messaging in terms of these kind of things to get people really emboldened and want to support something new. Because if you keep pivoting towards the conservative thing, they're not going to perceive it as anything new. And I know, I get it. It's all about branding. It's all about marketing. But I just, as an astute observer and person that pays attention, I just don't see how you appeal to, even if it's the younger, or because like I say, you're basically talking Gen X on down, because the boomers basically have already got, you know, most of that power. But from Gen X on down, like, you got to make this more of an emphasis on that kind of inclusivity, which is what libertarians bring to the table, which is, I'm not going against the left, I'm not going against the right. I'm saying this is what liberty, this is the principles of what liberty entails. And you need that to be the emphasis in terms of the messaging. So like I say, if Maxime doesn't want to do it himself, that's fine. But why wouldn't he, like, even if he didn't think that I would be good at it, I mean, get somebody to, you know, do a little mini documentary or a short couple video films or something that talks about these things and puts this kind of stuff into people's ear. And then, of course, the other thing, when you're talking about culture, I don't know, is there any artists, like music artists? Are there anyone like that are half decently well-known, you know, maybe comedian? Like, you have to get people that look up to other people, because people don't look at just politicians as their leaders. People look to people in the community in terms of business, in terms of, you know, like arts and entertainment. And those are the people that they perceive as leaders too. And those people have a tremendous amount of influence on the minds of everyone else. And if you could reach out to these kind of people, I'm not saying just use celebrity, but, you know, that definitely plays a role. You have to reach out to people so that you got, like I say, so you got enough people that are affecting and shifting the culture. Because without the culture, like I say, the politics isn't going to work. Like, the numbers just isn't going to work, because you have to get out there and appeal to those conservatives, the young conservatives, or the young liberals, or the disenfranchised lefties, or these people that might even identify as like collectivists. And you have to reach out and appeal to these people in a manner that sees where you respect them as an individual, but at the same time, you know, respect their ability to pick their own groups, right? So if they want to, you know, fight for LGBTQ issues, then you go ahead and do that. But there wasn't a whole lot of outreach or trying to, like I say, reach or appeal to that larger audience.
I think, you know, in regard to you're saying about, you know, the corporate bailouts, it was actually in our platform to end corporate welfare and, you know, cut back on foreign aid, so more money is for Canadians. And when you mentioned about supply management, it would attract a lot of people, some people from the left. It actually did. There were former NDP people that actually come over and worked with us closely, like executives and volunteers that were, you know, tired of crony capitalism and, you know, what's happening in Canada, like Bombardier, SNC Lavalin. There's plenty of issues.
Well, that to me is the biggest issue, especially for, well, because I have two sons, I think about this stuff on a regular basis, and I recognize that a lot of the people that would be identified as conservatives won't support Maxime Bernier or the PPC by sheer fact that, yeah, they've become very accustomed to the supply management or this kind of crony capitalism that we kind of function under, that keeps them propped up and the competition basically subsided. And I was that was actually one of the things I was really appreciative of Maxime and the PPC, that they were talking about those issues in terms of supply management, the dairy cartel, and all that. So I definitely appreciate it. But like I say, it just, to me, the messaging was, well, I mean, when you're in the meetings, yes. But like I say, in order to reach out to the people in Canada, there should have been some kind of social media campaign that actually, like I say, reached out to a broader audience. And like I say, use some aspects of the culture, like leaders in the community, to actually emphasize the importance of these principles in terms of libertarianism. Because like I say, I don't know how you do this as a conservative party. I just, other than the only thing I can even if I speculate, I can think, if people get, disenfranchised enough, especially after COVID, after now the crackdown and taking away people's ability to, own, like, what was it, 1,500 weapons they're banning now, and they just call them assault style. So, basically anything, it could be the exact same weapon. I don't know if you've ever seen Steven Crowder. He used to do this, go to the campuses. He'd set all these rifles on the table, right? And say, which one would you say should be banned? And, your grandpa's old, 30, like up on the wall there is a much more powerful than an AR-15. But, people see it because it looks more dangerous. And that's what Trudeau basically has gone with. It looks dangerous. Therefore, we're going to restrict or deny people's or Canadians to possess these firearms, which is automatically now going to turn a whole lot of Canadians basically into criminals overnight, right? For having these, well, unless they choose to comply by the political edicts. But basically that is what the Trudeau Liberals are doing, is basically calling these guns military or assault style. So basically, like I say, you could go to the store, I don't know, even as kids, you can buy those little cap guns and stuff, or big, they look like an M16, doesn't mean they are, right? It actually doesn't shoot anything other than air. But this is Trudeau going with this. But this is why I mean it's so important, because the politics, as we're seeing, we're not gaining any success in the political realm. And I get it, and I get what you're saying. Like, next time we could do better, right? But my biggest fear is, as these years keep going on, I mean, we're going to get to the point where it's like, we're so far beyond anything where it's even remotely resembling where we can we've off the beaten path of liberty so far that, like, we're lost in the woods and there's not much chance of ever getting back. That is my biggest concern, which is why I don't want to wait for these political parties just to, wait for when it's campaign time, which is why to me, even after the election was over, if the PPC was truly serious, or Maxime was 100% serious, and he wants to make sure that because you don't know when an election could be called, because it is a minority government, right?
I'd say within 2 years.
Right. So that's possible. So I would say you would definitely, if you were wise, you'd want to take advantage of these 2 years to really emphasize the importance of getting this kind of messaging out throughout the population, which means using social media. Like I said, using. So, but I haven't seen anything taking place since the election. It seems like everyone just kind of, took their, pulled up their lawn signs, right? Ripped off their "my name is" or whatever. And everyone went home and just forgot about the fact that, no, we still gotta be out here every day. Well, I mean, I do. I don't give a shit if the politicians are out there doing that. To me, because I care about, obviously myself and my kids and the future generations, the successive generations. But I'm out here every day, every freaking day. I've basically almost made this, it's like almost like a career for me now, but it's profoundly important. I don't get paid for it, right? I mean, I do get some people that are somewhat generous and donate to me a little bit here and there, which is nice. But I mean, like, to me, I emphasize and I realize how important it is that we have to do this in the interim, but I can't do it alone, which is why, to me, it's so weird. Why, like, to me, like, and I know you can't answer this yourself, nor would I ever expect you to, but I find it odd that after the election, it seems like a lot of people just pivoted away from me. And, well, even Tim Moen, I watched Tim Moen's videos, which, so to me, it's like, if it was a personality thing, to me, it'd be like, okay, Bennett, maybe it's just you. Cause I'll even acknowledge I can be a little bit raw and abrasive at times. So it could be just a personality thing. No, that's just reality. I know that. But even when I see Tim Mullen, and he does uploads videos all the time now with him, he's got a co-host, David, was it something bomb? Anyways, I can't remember his last name, but they do. And his videos get even much, much less views than I do. Like maybe 100, 200. So to me, it's like, I don't know where if they were truly interested, or if libertarianism piqued their curiosity, just like after Ron Paul ran in the US, once I learned about libertarian values and principles and heard how important that they were and how inspirational they can be as not just a, a political stance, but a philosophy that can guide you through your life. Like they're great principles espoused in libertarian philosophy that could guide every human being through the course of life to be just good, decent people. Right. But Ron Paul, right. He promoted that stuff. And after that, even after Ron Paul, he was defeated. The American people is actually seeing an increase in the amount of people that were interested in libertarianism, or even going to the Ayn Rand Institute or learn about objectivism. In Canada, I'm seeing the exact opposite here. Because like I say, it'd be different if, okay, they're not watching my videos. Okay, whatever. I don't know what the reason is, but are they going to Tim Mullins and watching his? No. Our social media pages exploding in people that are now curious or interested in libertarian values of principle. I'm not seeing any of it, which is that is my biggest concern, right? Sorry, so I know I ramble on, but anyways, just go. What is your thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't know about, I don't have a large spectrum. Like I'm on social media, like I tweet a lot. Facebook's really not my thing.
Right.
But I know was it either the end of this month or last month, that in terms of talking about whether it's the People's Party of Canada or the Libertarian Party, I know the People's Party of Canada was the most mentioned political party on Twitter last month.
Last month, really? Wow, that's pretty good if they are, because I have, like I say, I haven't seen it. Well, then, like I say, I'm just trying to get, because I don't. The People's Party. Well, I do know that Maxime's even his YouTube channel has grown. Because I know when he started out, I think it was only like 1,000 or less than 2,000, I think, or so, or somewhere around there when his channel that he had for subscribers. And I do know that it's grown quite a bit since then. But once again, it seems to be, and I've checked them out from time to time, but it still seems to be predominantly like conservatives. I'm not seeing like a big ramp up in terms of the libertarians. And like I say, my thing going forward, the reason why I'm wanting to have this conversation with you, and I'd like to have it with a few more people, is my biggest thing is, what do I like? Because to me, it's not about playing politics. It's about bringing, educating, informing the population so that they actually understand. Because until they understand what freedom's all about, then good luck with that. They're just, like I say, you're just picking, you want the Leafs to win or the Canadians to win, as far as I'm concerned. But if there isn't anything where I see that this is kind of be emphasized in the PPC, and not that I would, say, the PPC, I wish them well, nothing against them, of course, but I just don't think I could emphasize supporting the PPC if they're not going to emphasize the importance of even getting people to understand what true liberty means. Because if you're just going to try to talk the conservative thing, then okay, yeah, then we'll have a conservative party in this country. Would it be a better alternative to Trudeau? Yeah, for a while, but then you still end up with conservatives. So you still leave basically a barren space wide open where there's no respect for like libertarians or people that like truly care about liberty. It's just, what do you want, red or blue, right? And to me, I want to maintain my support for the PPC. I just don't know how I continue to do so going forward when we don't seem to be on, like I say, traveling. At least originally I thought we were traveling down the same path. I don't feel that we're actually even traveling in the same direction anymore.
I mean, I know within, my writings and PEI, I know most people I talk to put you in very high regard. I'm not sure if some people don't, but I think I saw a thing that you're like the 4th or 5th most watched libertarian channel on YouTube. So I mean,
really?
that's in North America. So I mean, I hold you in high regard. I know a lot of people close to me do, and I think the People's Party of Canada can respect everyone. if you're a Canadian, we respect you. And, I think, you'd have to have some conservative aspects, from my standpoint, at least. I was a Conservative Party member for 10 years. And then when Maxime lost the race, I kind of stepped back from politics for about a year. And then I was like, well, I got to get back involved. I love politics. That's eventually my end goal, whether it be at, somewhere. I don't know about running for office, but, somewhere behind the scenes doing something, which is what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
It's what I enjoy. And I identify, I lean libertarian on some things. The older I've got, the more I've kind of realized that liberty and freedom is more important than, making a ton of rules and regulations. But back to the supply management you mentioned a little earlier, I've said before, why do we pay 2 to 3 times the price for dairy, eggs, and poultry than any other first world country? Why do we have the highest cell phone cost of any CRTC or first world country? Because Bell and Rogers control the whole network, right? I'm not saying, let every country in, in my opinion, don't let Huawei in. I've commented on that plenty of times on Twitter, do not let them in. But, why can't we let T-Mobile in, or AT&T or Sprint? Create competition. The more competition you have, the lower the prices get, and the more the consumer is going to be happy.
Yeah. Well, that's the big, and that's where, like I say, it's being failed by the young people. And why, I get that you're into politics, but see, that's where we're, to me, it's I'll put up with politics because I recognize that we have to, but to me, I can't stand politics, and which is why I prefer most of the time. And before the PPC, I even with Tim, I had to say, Tim, sorry, buddy, I just can't get into why? Because like I said, I recognize, and to me, but if you think about it, if we want these young people, right, and what you were saying, especially in terms of the supply management, if we want them to get to understand this, then we have to have a way to properly inform them. So there has to be something that we are all doing. And I like I say, I can offer ideas and potential solutions, but there has to be something that you can use to reach out to the younger people, because it's probably not going to happen overnight. But if we at least put in the effort and the work now, within a generation or two, hopefully, and as we're, at least if we start bending that curve back more towards liberty and further away from collectivism, I get it's a long-term process, but I'm still, like I say, I still don't know how we can do that without those who are, because like I say, we're definitely going to need the people that are in politics, because we're not going to just bring down, when people say, oh, let's just do a revolution. No, we're not going to destroy. I'm not one of those ones that's let's throw the baby with the bathwater and start fresh. No, that's stupid, right?
Agreed.
But when I realize it, just like when I was raising my kids or anything, that freedom, that liberty, it's all just a state of mind. That's all it is. Now I get it's very, very difficult, because the older people, especially the older you get, you become more rigid in your thinking and your ideology. And it's really, really hard. It's like teaching old dog new tricks, really, real difficult. But like I say, to me, the younger people are still susceptible to learning some of these things, even though the education system has obviously failed them. I mean, when you look at how many students are coming out of these institutional centers these days, and what was it? CBC did ran it a couple of years ago. It was an article. It was a big study they did. I think it was 18% of women and 22% of men, or 24. Anyways, it was basically around 1 in 5 are coming out of our education institutions that are actually economically or financially literate. So that means 4 out of 5 young people today. And I would probably include a lot of people from my own age range, because I know myself, I had to self-teach myself. All the things that I know today was never taught to me by anyone in school. No. I had a couple good teachers. I won't throw all teachers on the bus. I had actually 2 in regular school and 2 when I went back and got my GED at a community college. So I had 4 in the course of my life that really, amazing teachers. And I wish I could pay them a tremendous amount of money because they did all the right things to get me inquisitive and thinking about things. But like I say, without people that, and Maxime, which obviously has influence in the political realm, but he obviously has influence and talks to people in the business realm. And like I say, when you're in that kind of leadership position, it is really incumbent, and I believe it's very important to reach out and to people that are going to be kind of like thought leaders in some way to challenge the status quo. Because without it, to me, it's Maxime's going to be like the dog chasing his proverbial tail forever. if you don't change the culture. And the only way you're going to change the culture is not by politicians, because a lot of Canadians, well, you know, most Canadians, even when they show up to vote, there's a majority of the Canadian population that don't even vote. So last election, what was it? 6 point some million voted for the Liberals or whatever, and 5 point something for the Conservatives. But meanwhile, there was almost 10 million that sat home. 9
Didn't
point
vote at all.
didn't vote at all. So if you think about just that 10 million alone of people that don't give a shit about politics at all, that 10 million already is a higher majority than the Liberals got. And it's already a higher majority. I mean, it's almost as much people as if you took the Liberal and Conservative Party votes combined. So that tells you there's a lot of ripe fruit. And I would say it's not that high hanging. It's just that people have not chosen the proper methodology to reach out to them. And like I say, it's not going to happen when you're, you know, political advertising. It has to be cultural, like music festival. I don't like I say, I could come up with a million different things, but you have to make it so you're putting on like events. You want to have people, like I say, that are in leadership positions throughout, like I say, culture. So musicians, comedians, you know, talk show, I don't know, whoever, but people, and especially people that actually have influence on the younger people, right? So if you can do that, then I think at some point in time, then the politics will pay off, because we are still going to have to go through the democracy of the voting thing, right? And I would prefer, obviously, if we had something like a proportional representation where we could at least get a few people like Maxime or a few people in there and at least start having these ideas promoted and put forth, even if it's just in question period or something, right? But until we can get that happening, I just don't know how the politics thing plays out. I can't see any way where we get from here to there without doing the big things in terms of shifting the culture, which means and requires that the politicians that want to gain these positions reaching out to the people that are kind of reflective of you know, more liberty oriented culture, namely people like myself. Right?
I think it's kind of where the, like I said, where the high schools and universities and even most of the teachers, I would think would tend to be very left leaning people anyway.
Yeah.
I think it's best. I mean, I'm not sure how we'd go about bypassing really those people to try to, you know, get people that are libertarian minded, or even, you know, away from the socialist ideas, you know, into the high schools and talk to them, right? I mean, you look in the States, they ban, I don't know if you follow Ben Shapiro at all, but they ban him from universities from talking. You know, Charlie Kirk has trouble getting into some schools, and the moment they get there, there's riots and protests, and
right.
You know, it's hard to get that message across.
Oh, I get you, but this is a perfect time, especially when the students have been out of school. This would have been a perfect time to because now a lot of them are, you know, at home and on their social media platforms even more than they would be in school, and they're even starting to get the education. I like, why is there no such thing even in Canada in terms of these people in these positions? Like, why is there no such thing that's like a Canadian Liberty University, like someone trying to start up some kind of online university that doesn't just teach academics, right? But you also have courses as you get later in life that deals with these things. Because this, to me, this is the part that's always kind of driven me crazy once I become an adult, is how do you expect young, old, or anyone in between to make proper informed decisions in terms of governance when they're never given this kind of information? No. Even, you know what I mean? Like to me, it's like taking someone that's never even worked on a car ever in their life, say, here, go rebuild this engine for me. It's like, well, of course they're going to screw up. What do you expect? You never even told them how to hold a wrench, right? So, but to me, it's like, this is kind of like where I'm going with this, more or less. Like I say, so for Maxime, and like I say, I'm sure he's got lots of people that he's got their ears and he can, you know, reach out to them. And obviously they have money. They could do campaigning fundraising, but whatever you could do to, like I say, to reach out, to offer something to challenge the status. Because like you say, the education system, we can't get rid of them. You know, the teachers unions are so they're
and you probably can't change them either.
No, exactly. And I don't believe you could, because it would take a long time. So rather than, to me, that's the thing, rather than try to change them, no, you just set up another thing, show this is how it works better, right? We can't change this, But if you had the option to be properly educated in this country without having to go to these government-run institutions, then I think, and I mean, we have to be going towards that place anyways. I've said for the longest time, I still can't believe, especially for these poor young people that are coming out of these universities or colleges with these ridiculous amounts of debt. It's like, do you realize, like, there's not just the Khan Academy, but Princeton, Yale, Harvard. There's a lot of these universities that are slowly starting to put now, the big ones like that aren't going to give you everything for free, obviously, because they're still going to want to get that cheddar. But like I say, this kind of information, it's all out there and readily available. If you just had a handful of people out there putting together these resources and setting up something where you did have an alternative source for online education, that would show, as libertarians, or like whatever you want to brand yourself, right? But that would show that you're not just about politics, but you're showing, like, there's not only am I saying that there's a way to change this, I'm showing you this is how to do it, and we're going to actually put in some foundational measures in order to bring that to fruition. And I see down in the U.S. all the time, like, there's countless think tanks down there. Like, I'm not just talking about the Mises Institute, right, and the Ayn Rand Institute or that
the Heritage Foundation.
Right. No, there's a tremendous amount of them that are constantly coming up with new and innovative ideas. And to me, as a Canadian, I'm like, come on, can we try doing some of this stuff ourselves? Right.
We do have some some free market think tanks here in Canada, like the Fraser Institute is good. Montreal Economic, Ames is here actually in Halifax, an hour away from me. They're paired in with the Fraser Institute, and I've taken it upon myself to, read a lot of their publications and stuff. Because I mean, in high school, it's like, I knew I didn't need, like, I wasn't going to need calculus or biology or chemistry. Maybe the way we can change, instead of changing maybe so much not the culture in the high schools, universities, but in high school especially, maybe we can somehow change some of the curriculum. Maybe change the way the schooling sounds. Like, if you're not going to go to university and be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer, why can't they take courses on, how to invest in the stock market, how to be financially independent? They don't teach you that, right? They teach you, the stuff that not everyone needs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the very least, obviously you want to leave most of the academic stuff, like, for education. But to me, coming out of school, there should be at least one course. I mean, we all have to get our math, we all have to get our English, and usually have at least one science or one. How is it that you don't have to have at least one course that deals with government structure and like how that unfolds and how government even work? Like, without that, to me, like I say, that you have all these people kind of coming out of school, and then they just look for who's got the best. And I mean, the snake oil salesmen, they're pretty good, right? Let's just admit, like, they're really good at putting forth the rhetoric. I mean, they've basically become professional liars, and they're really good at putting forth that notion. So to me, the only way to protect the young people as they're coming out of school from this kind of stuff is to give them the knowledge, first and foremost, that people that you got to give them the knowledge to say that's what a snake oil salesman looks like, right? And if you don't give them that foundational knowledge, then they won't know who the hell they're dealing with. And as we know, especially because of everything that's mostly built on altruism, it all sounds good in theory. Like, of course, to a young person, how does it not sound good that you should have free education, right? Especially if you've heard your mom and dad say, well, I've had to pay taxes my whole life. It's like, so they automatically, and because your mom and dad had to pay taxes their whole life, well, you automatically feel, well, I'm entitled to an education, right? Which in reality, are you genuinely entitled to an education? Was it right for your parents to have to? Did they give a choice? Did they get the proper education? Was there a way to hold these teachers to account in case the educators failed to deliver what they promised? None of that happens in any of these government institutions, right? So that to me is like, if we don't give the young people this kind of knowledge, then, like I say, they're just going to fall for whatever snake oil salesman has on offer. And most of the time, because especially someone like you, and you're a principled man, Mitchell, obviously, I consider myself principled. Even Maxime, much more principled than most, right? How are you going to win when you got the snake oil salesman, or the guy that's get ready to hand your kid a baby, and you're trying to say to the kid that no, you or the baby, no, you're not allowed to have a kid. They're going to want to gravitate towards the one that's going to offer them the goodies. Like, that's just, and we know this. That's just an instinctual nature, right? So if we don't give them the proper information, first and foremost, they're going to. Like I say, I just don't know how principled. Like a principled position without, like I say, having that culture, without having these grand stories or these meta narratives, because that to me is how you even growing up in the 80s and 90s, right? Or 70s, although I was still young then. But it was those movies or television shows or a lot of the things, even in regards to freedom. Hell, the movie Braveheart taught me more about freedom than anything I would have, right? No, but I mean,
than learned in school.
And because the way they do it in a movie type setting, that's one thing Hollywood is great at, is if you do that, like it's very inspiring, and it doesn't seem like you're trying to be like, you should do this, right?
Yeah.
You're getting the exact same kind of message in terms of how important it is to stand for your freedom and your liberty. You're getting that messaging, but in a manner that you actually sit there, you're engaged with it because these actors are engaging and good looking or whatever. But like that to me is how we can properly shift the culture of Canada, because that's what I've noticed that's reflective of a lot of Canadians, is they're not getting this kind of information. And today we can't even rely on Hollywood anymore, because Hollywood has gone full on to the SJW leftists, right? The Hollywood movies that they're producing today, they're nothing like they were produced in the 70s or 80s or 90s, right?
No, and most big corporations, where it's trickled down from, like we said, the universities that are so indoctrinated into the left that the people coming out of school with good paying jobs are then indoctrinated into the left. They become high powered people, if you will, in companies, and they're into the left, and then it trickles down into the workforce, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. That's why we need people in genuine leadership positions that are bold enough. And that's, I know it's difficult, but you need people that are bold enough to say these things, to do the things that needs to be done. And I really wish that the PPC or Maxime or other people, and maybe some that are watching this today, because like I say, I don't want to make it so that I have an adversarial relationship with the PPC, but I have to point out, just because I care about this stuff, I have to point out how important it is for me to be able to, if I'm going to help, support or promote the PPC in any way, I have to know that we're at least traveling down the same path and not just looking to get rid of whatever party's in charge. And like I say, until we can get the culture shift in this country, I don't know how you can do that in the political realm. So if you could, like I say, talk to, and I'm sure, like, I'm not too worried about like you and your riding there in Nova Scotia or whatever, because like I say, maybe you do have more people, especially if you say it's a rural community, you might have more people that maybe are more conducive with, conservatism or getting rid of the big government kind of way of doing things. Because I recognize even my own place where I live, people still in the small rural communities still kind of do a lot for each other. So it's not this constant need all the time for big government. Like now, some of the older people, do rely for the whole pension thing. But that's another thing in terms of culture. I would even say for the young people today, rather than relying on government. Now, we can't do anything now with the lockdown and COVID and all this stuff. But I was even trying to emphasize this before, a great way to shrink the size and scope of government is start picking up that personal responsibility as Canadians and taking care of the aging and the elderly, rather than relying on government to do it. If you want to shrink that government up, then you have to take that personal responsibility and put that in your hands instead of relying on someone from government to do that. Because, historically, now, if they have medical conditions, totally different thing. But historically, the way humans function was parents and grandparents helped take care of the older. And as they got older, the younger people took care of them on theirs, towards their final years in life. And that was a great balancing effect. And that actually kept family strong. Because
it's still that way in a lot of European countries too. The parents and grandparents will actually move back in with the kids. And now,
right.
I can't speak for everything, but a lot of Canadians just throw their parents in a nursing home.
Yeah. And like,
I would never do that to my parents. Like, come live with me if you have to. Like, you're not being put in a nursing home. It's ridiculous.
Exactly. And I feel the same way too. And I believe like maybe us as Gen Xers and on down, we can kind of pivot back towards that. Like I say, and that would be a way you could get rid of a huge amount of resources that are spent on government just by and once again, no revolutions, no violence, no protest, and you just have to show it's not needed and necessary. And to me, like I say, it actually builds the strength of the family and the rigidity of that strength. It's baked in by the sheer fact, because you just think of it, just perceive like, the parent or the grandparent, like even if your grandkid, right, has done some bad things, you might say, or your kid, let's say, I'm just going, that's it, I'm done with them, right? Well, you might be able to say that today if you realize that, I don't need them anyways, because government will give me my pension and take care of me anyways. But if you knew that there was no government pension, or that you could rely on someone that actually cared for you and had a personal relationship with you to take care of you, that's an automatic incentive that you're going to want to keep that relationship at least strong enough that and the bond strong enough that they will want to return in kind and take care of you in those later years in life. And like I say, that is a beautiful way of doing it, where it's that reciprocal relationship, and it's totally adheres to, libertarian philosophy, right? And you don't have to use, it's all voluntary, but it does show how tremendous it is for people to have strong ties with their families and take that personal responsibility instead of relying on someone else to do it for them. Look at all the seniors in these homes that are now dying as a consequence of this COVID-19. I don't want to make anyone out there feel guilty or anything, but I will just point out, there's a pretty good chance that, if a lot of them, because we have seen in our rural communities, like in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, not too many old people are dying in any of these. Why? Because they actually have that isolation, and because they're with the family members that genuinely care for them, that are going to do everything they can in their power to take care of them, and because they are isolated in those particular dwellings. Whereas, if you just pawn your grandma or someone off, or your parent off to these senior homes, even if they're doing the best thing, I wouldn't even say that the people in these senior homes are doing anything, purposely. But I mean, come on, you have a lot of people stuck in a small spot that are very vulnerable. It's definitely a recipe for disaster if this virus does. And I mean, obviously, it's going to happen. We're seeing it taking place. But that personal responsibility, even that alone, could have made it so that this COVID-19, like, there's so many consequences of that people don't even think about. If you put all this stuff into perspective and you teach them how important it is, not just to keep family close, but to keep community close as well, because that's another thing that keeps big government at bay. Right? You don't need to use government. Like around here, when someone's house burned down, and let's say that person didn't have fire insurance, you probably know this yourself if you live in a rural community in Nova Scotia. A lot of the folks around here, well, not so much now because a lot of them have had to leave. But if there was anyone of adult age and could do lumber work or carpentry work, or the people would donate resources or materials, or have church gatherings that they would, put up the collection plate, and people would actually, help that person to rebuild their home again. Once again, didn't have to go to government, no forced wealth or income redistribution. You got that. And by the sheer fact that you're members of your community showed that they were willing to help you, well, that puts you in a position that you're going to want to reciprocate and do the exact same. So once again, it's the perfect way to keep big government at bay with, once again, no revolutions. But it has to be, like I say, it has to be cultural in nature. You and I are obviously in places, and I recognize based on how you're talking that, it's probably easier for us in our jurisdictions or where we live at this particular time to make that happen. And maybe we can go door to door, house to house, and kind of expand this stuff better. But my biggest concern is we have a tremendous amount of the Canadian population that are in these rural settings on the East Coast that have, a lot of statism jammed in their head and not much else on offer.
And that's the sad thing too. Like, regard to community charity. I said before, like I live in a rural area, like you mentioned, and when someone has something wrong with them, whether it's a surgery or something's going on, even from a personal experience, I had a family member that had a serious infection. The community all got together and we had a ticket auction and raised a bunch of money, right?
Yeah.
Instead of, putting your hand out to the government saying, hey, give me money. A lot of people don't realize, we got to pay that money back somehow. People are like, oh, we're getting $2,000 right now for this, relief fund. We're going to pay for it later. Like, if people are like, oh, this is nice, we're going to see the cost of gas. When gas goes back up, the gas is going to skyrocket. We already have the carbon tax in place here in Canada. And, that's going to put the cost of food up. So now people are transporting the food. Those companies are going to have to pay their employees more money.
Yeah.
We got to get away from a lot of these big government programs. Get rid of the carbon tax. Withdraw from the Paris Accord. They've spent. They're not even going to meet their targets. They were saying it before. Trudeau's Liberals aren't going to meet the targets. It's a waste of money. You're taxing the citizens to death.
Yeah. Well, not just that, but even if they did meet the target because of the COVID-19, basically shutting down large portion of the economy. If you watch that Michael Moore, did you watch that Michael Moore film? I actually did, because I was quite interested because people were talking about it. Planet of the Humans. Oh, you got to check that out. Yeah, it's called Planet of the Humans. I was quite shocked because Michael Moore is usually a lefty himself, right? He's kind of an advocate for those causes, usually for the leftists, but maybe him and a few of his people that he associates with were sick and tired of being taken advantage of himself. Anyways, they did this movie, and it's regard Now, I'll admit they still kind of claim like there's still environmentalism aspects of it, but they basically point out throughout that documentary that a lot of these startups or these new green shoots or renewable energy are using tremendous amount of resources. One in particular is they use it as an example to try to challenge against some of the oil and gas extraction is to use like just burning trees and wood wood chips, like just constantly, and they showed how much even more. But see how it is the way that that's set up is it gets to avoid being counted as carbon intensive. There's something where they just basically use policy to give them a loophole to be able to pollute tremendously, even more than you would from using natural gas or oil. But they get to hide that. But meanwhile, it's much more destructive than even using oil and natural gas. So it did enlighten, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that would call themselves as environmentalists and be like, oh, so maybe this is kind of a bit of a farce after all. And to me, what I want to reach out, which is another thing when you're talking about environmentalism, is actually it's not just libertarians, but people that are big into economics or entrepreneurs at all, which, would obviously would be, well, actually liberals, conservatives, people from all political backgrounds and stripes, I guess, can be entrepreneurs and innovators and creators. But to me, that's the thing that's most destructive from this messaging from the left in terms of environmentalism is this pretense that you have to pivot towards government to suppress economic transactions to create a greener, more prosperous future. No, actually, that's what the market's for. That is literally what the market is for. If you can offer something, and I mean, look at Elon Musk. He's doing a pretty good job. He's getting to the point where now you're getting to the point where you might be able to go and get that Tesla. Now, I get there's government subsidies and all that. And I'm against it, obviously, but I'm just saying, if you can show like someone like Tesla or Elon Musk that you can have these examples, not by putting all the rest of the competition out of business, but just by showing that, hey, I got a better, or at least another option or alternative for the business model. Well, people will gravitate towards that. Just like we all had, you didn't need to tell people back to the old horse and buggy in the Model A days, right? You didn't have to tell people to go buy a car rather than get on that horse and straddle it, going into Fredericton from Boys Town, let's say, right? No, the car was smoother, it was quicker, right? It's just, if you give people that option, that's the beautiful thing about innovation and creativity is you give people that option, they're going to gravitate towards that anyway. So there's no need to use force. And the very people that will come up with all these innovative ideas to reduce our carbon footprint and all these things, the people that are going to do that are going to do that in a free market environment, tying their hands and feet behind their back and then trying to suggest, okay, now we need you to fix all the ills of the world. It's like, that's not how you do it. Right? If you want to, let that creativity flourish, well, you gotta take the shackles off. And if you don't take the shackles off, then don't expect to see that kind of entrepreneurial spirit or zeal flourishing in any way. That's the part to me. And that's something that I think the lefties really need to hear, because these young people, think about it. Could I get mad about people that seem to be the big thing that they're concerned with is they don't want the earth frying or whatever? Now, I'm sure they're giving the wrong information, obviously, but I'm not going to hate on these people for it, nor should I sit here and constantly insult them. What I want to do is be able to talk to them and say, listen, you're just giving the wrong information. I'm totally on board with you here. I want to have options too, because we all know that, it is a finite resource in terms of oil and gas extraction. It's going to have to fade out eventually. I think, though, there's so much innovation that's you can expand that a whole lot longer, right?
Yes.
But like I say, in the interim, all those awesome men and women out there in the oil patch, there's absolutely no reason whatsoever for any of them to have to lose a job, because there's already enough demand. Well, I mean, COVID's fucking it up, but there's already plenty enough demand to keep those men and women in their jobs. And like I say, what they're doing are creating this beautiful modern era that we now can take advantage of all that they produce to come up with these new ideas. That's the other thing with these the environmentalists. You're standing on the backs of all these people, right? That computer you're using, wouldn't exist if there was no such thing as fossil fuels. Products. That's smart, right? All that text and all that protesting that you're doing against the fossil fuels. Well, you wouldn't even be able to do any of that if it wasn't. Like I say, they're just not hearing these kind of messages, which is why, like I say, I think the politics is. and I'm just going to say this the last time, and then I'm going to be done with it. And like I say, we can tie this up actually too, because we were about an hour and 38 minutes. But like I say, I just don't see how the politics plays out without affecting the culture first and foremost. That's my big thing.
No, I think on the environment, I mean, everyone knows the environment is changing. I don't think we need to, scare little children, panicking about and not going to school, like having, environmental marches in the main streets of towns and blocking things off. I don't understand. Like, I'm not saying, we need to, do what Pittsburgh Steel did in the 70s, just dump all the toxic waste into the river. I'm not saying that, but I think, there's other things we can do, if, instead of having, regards to pipelines, it's cheaper and safer to build pipelines all across the country than it is to transport it by train and by truck.
Yep.
They're like, we can't have oil at all. Well, if you get rid of gas and oil in Canada, the United States, or any other oil producing country in the world, where we're going to get the money back from, right? It's an economic thing as well. You can't just magically create money. Well, the Liberals are right now by printing more and more money from the banks, but
yeah. Well, that's the thing. And like what you were alluding to earlier with all this money printing stuff, this is another thing that young people, if they realize today, and obviously they're not being given this information from anyone in the establishment media or from the establishment parties, but if they realize today, even while they're collecting their CERB or all these, or getting money from government while they're, not having to go to school or anything like that, if they realize right now that actually, that $2,000 a month, that's going to cost you probably $10,000. Right?
Yeah.
Per month at some point in time in terms of future taxation or inflation of all the prices of everything you're buying. If they realize that, then they would be able to think critically about this issue and wouldn't be so quick to adopt or support this kind of nonsense. To me, for my own sons, how I explained this real easily back years ago is when interest rates back on credit cards was high. I think it was like 30% back then. But basically, at a $5,000 credit card, if you go to that $5,000 limit, right, you pay off just that minimum, or if you just make that minimum payment at that time, if you did the calculations, even on a mere $5,000, which not a whole lot of money. Now, I'll admit this has been a few years now, but even on that $5,000, if you make that minimum payment, you'll never pay. Well, 30 years is what it would take for you to pay off not just the 5,000, but all that interest that's going to accrue over that entire time frame, which makes it a whole lot more than the 5,000. So I even explained to my sons today, and my oldest son has one credit card. My youngest son doesn't even want a credit card. But anyways, basically is, you go, it's so easy to go out and purchase that, $100 thing that's on sale or whatever. And but if you don't pay that off by the end of that month, and you keep that on the back end of your credit card, well, that's going to keep incurring that incremental interest cost. And that thing that I got it for $100 might cost you $500. And nobody, I mean, come on, if you're thinking critically about the issue, now I get people have that, they want that immediate gratification, but at least I think a substantial portion of the young people would be wise enough to like, okay, yeah, I would kind of like to have that now, but if it's going to cost me 10 times more in the future, okay, maybe I'll think about sacrificing for the here and now. Maybe I'll take that $10,000 later. But that's the thing with Keynesian economics, rock bottom interest rates. It's basically, and I mean, and it's completely proper incentive. So this is why I don't even get mad at not just young people or old people, but who the hell is going to want to try to save money when if you put your money in the bank right now, it's losing money. Because even if you're getting 1.5% interest rate, the inflation
covering inflation.
Yeah, the inflation is already way higher than that. So you're losing year after year after year. So your purchasing power is being eroded. So that automatically incentivizes people to go out and spend in the here and now rather than save for later, which puts them in that Keynesian psychology or mentality where it's all about the quick fix. And like I say, nobody's thinking about the long-term prospects, which is what's happening today from, like I say, the boomer generation on down. It seems that everyone's just, it's all about, let's kick that can down the road. I don't know how that can, there's anything even left to it anymore, right? What the hell?
Bunch of broken pieces of metal by now.
Yeah, how's there anything? I don't even know. You look at it now, it's like, is it even a can? I don't know. It's just a big jumbled mess.
Well, I'm pretty sure now, I think it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, the credit card companies actually passed, I think the government passed a law or someone did, that when you get your credit card bill now, it actually tells you if you only make the minimum payment, how long it'll actually take to pay it off.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Oh, that at least I guess they're getting a little wiser with at least putting that stuff out there. But yeah, it's pretty disturbing. But like you say, with this, all the money, and now what they say for 2021 is going to be basically over $250 billion deficit.
$59 billion.
That's just the deficit.
And we're still giving more away. Like, I don't get it in a sense. Like, I understand you have to help certain countries at certain times, but and whether I'm gonna, most people don't agree with this, but China is the reason we're in this issue. Why are we giving $50 million back to them when they're costing us money right now? And I said, I've made tons of posts on Twitter. Stop doing business with China. Like, I'm not saying, Chinese people are bad people. It's just the government. Can you trust them? We have allies and trade partners in Europe, United States, the United Kingdom. Now they left the European Union. They're strong trade partners, right? You can't just, keep giving people money. They're the reason we're losing money.
Yeah. Well, that's the issue. And this is a thing where even libertarians, I found myself in arguments and disagreements with other libertarians when you talk about this stuff, because some people will turn towards libertarianism just because they're goddamn economic, like they're those vulture capitalist types that they don't give a shit about anything other than making money. And it's like, that's when I even myself try to push back against, because when you talk about free trade or open borders, like you'll even have libertarians that still promote open borders. Like, listen, if there's no such thing as a state or forced wealth or income redistribution, maybe at some point in time you might be able to make that argument, but we don't live in a world where it's like there's some mystical construct. We live in a world where there are actual real states, right? So even if we try to destroy, pretend that this state doesn't exist called Canada, well, the rest of the states all around us are still going to be states, right? They're just going to try to envelop or take over. So to me, it's like I say, it's more important that we get this information out there so they realize the importance of understanding that if you want your freedoms to actually flourish and exist, then you have to think in more of the macro aspect of things, not just like the micro or the political aspect of it. But anyways, I was actually going with somewhere else with that, but I kind of lost my train of
when you mentioned
probably caught that. What's that? Sorry.
About the economic issues, like on the left, I think it's Scotiabank says you're richer than you think.
Oh,
well, of course you are. You're taking, if you put your paycheck in there, any savings account in there, they take that money, they invest your money, and they give you 2% back. It's like, why don't, people invest in, bypass the middleman and actually invest right into the global economy? The global economy really doesn't change.
Oh, okay. I remember where I was going with that. Sorry.
All that much. I mean, it's 13 to 15% on average, and probably right now it's about 11%. But that's a lot better than what the bank's giving you at 1.9%.
Yeah. Well, actually, and where I was going with that was actually the trade part of it. It's like what you were talking about a little bit there just a minute or so ago is I'm all for free trade, but only if you're talking about, this to me, this race to the bottom, that's not free trade, because, if China can, pay their people or treat them like slaves, like, I mean, you could try to make that kind of excuse that it's free trade, but no, that's not really, because once again, that's the state imposing or mandating what those people are worth in terms of their labor, right? Because I'm pretty sure those Chinese people, especially if they're competent, in terms of their jobs or their duties, they should be compensated, or at least roughly. I don't care what they get paid in, like whether it's the yuan or the Canadian dollar, but it should at least show something at least remotely resembling parity, right? So that we understand the proper valuations. Now that can change in a free market. There will be ups and downs. There will be reflections of differences and discrepancies. But once again, it gives people at least the ability to see, what functions properly. Whereas if you're using force or slavery, right, then there is no market mechanism. There is no price mechanism anymore. And that's how, without the price mechanism, the markets don't work. Once you've removed the price mechanism, and labor is a representation of that price mechanism, like what those people demand or require to be compensated. If I can force someone to work for me, there's no measure of their labor, right? It's just whatever I can dictate or determine. So to me, in terms of, and that's why I believe the West did it best, I believe, prior to bringing China into the WTO, because at least when we were trading mostly with like Western Europe or like Australia or countries or Japan, or countries that were like more closely aligned with the Commonwealth or of actually using more market-oriented capitalism, then we can compete on that. But what that does is it raises and elevates, because competition, right? Competition raises and elevates, right? You don't see in any competition and competitive endeavor where people get worse at it. Right? It's like, well, it's a constant increase, gradual, mind you, but there's a constant and forever increase.
Competition breeds more success.
Exactly. Whereas
It's like
the
sports, right? You know, if you have a football team and you're not very good,
Yep.
but you stay in the same division or league to play the bad teams just to win,
Yeah.
you're not going to get any better.
Exactly. And like I say, bringing China or even, with some of these other countries around the world that we trade with now is, basically, yes, we're getting benefits of cheap goods, but only at the expense of the destruction of the market and proper incentives, which, as we're seeing now, is coming to bite us in the ass, right? Because think about it, in Canada, what can you get as a consequence of bringing China into the WTO? A lot of really, really cheap goods, right?
For the most part, yeah.
For the most part. But think about all the staples. Like these cheap goods, you could eliminate all those cheap goods and you'd still be able to get through life perfectly fine. But what has it done to our actual market economy in terms of the price of everything that we require as staples? So the food in our belly, the roof over our head, right? The gas in our, the gas is being manipulated once again, but this is has nothing to do with the actual market. It's price fixing, all that bullshit, right? And now
crony capitalism with the gas market.
And right. But think about it. In Canada, we pay now for like the roof over the head, even in some of these smaller jurisdictions. The prices are outstripped in comparison or contrast to the wages of a typical person today. Food and groceries. Even myself, and I love me some hamburger. It's like, holy crap. I have to wait for it to go on sale sometimes. And $3.99 a pound is like, that's on sale. Holy crap.
The one you look at like chicken. I don't know if it's any different in New Brunswick or here in Nova Scotia, but you get a 4-pack of boneless, skinless chicken breast. It's like $20.
Oh, that's what I mean.
You can go to like dead end nowhere in the United States and it's $6.
Yeah.
Because they're not getting killed with government regulation. They have regulations in place, but the government's not controlling the price. And anyone who wants to grow chickens, you get a license, you can grow chickens and breed chickens, right? Here you can't do that. Like you have to be part of the, pretty much the supply management cartel, and the government tells you what you can have. They're dumping out thousands of gallons of milk. They're breaking eggs. And I'm like, there's people starving.
Yeah.
Like maybe not give it away, but sell it at 99 cents a dozen so people can eat right now. They can't afford to eat.
Yeah.
And the Chinese manufacturing, the stuff they make, most of it is cheap other than their Huawei technology. But like I said, I don't want that here. Why can't we build small businesses in Canada? And if you want to, have our dollar stores and stuff, why can't it be manufactured in Canada and employ Canadian people to boost our economy instead of taking handouts from other people and boosting their economy? I'm not saying, we become completely shut off from everyone, but, make smart deals and, look after Canadians first.
Yeah. Well, and when you bring up that argument, actually, I love talking about this stuff, because then you'll hear someone maybe that's a Keynesian or a lefty that'll try to offer the counterpoint. Oh, yeah, but if we bring back or source some manufacturing in our own country, that will mean the price of everything goes up tremendously. Well, first of all, some things may, but just like with Henry Ford back in the day when he started the production assembly line, is all business owners, all entrepreneurs, all innovators and creators have to realize that, yes, you're going to have the price mechanism gain. That's going to be part and parcel. But if you want to have people that actually can buy and consume your goods or services, then they have to be properly rewarded and compensated to the level where their wages are reflective of that. So yes, maybe if we brought some of the manufacturing back to Canada, let's just say, I don't know, whatever it is, just pick, let's just say even,
how about more car manufacturing plants in Ontario?
Yeah, let's just use the car. Yeah, let's just use even the car manufacturer. So let's say, okay, the car manufacturing comes back to Canada. We got more these facilities across the country. Okay, now the price of car goes up. But if you actually function in a free market and government wasn't messing around and manipulating things, well, all these businesses would have to reiterate and refigure out how that price structure, or that mechanism, all the way from the raw resources coming on the ground, there would be a difference and a price reflection that would have to reflect the fact that on the other side of that, people need to be able to purchase that car. So maybe their wages would have to get an automatic increase that actually is out in front or higher to a degree, even if it's a small amount, in order to pay for that. So there's all kinds of ways that you can offset these imposed costs that would be a consequence of bringing the manufacturing back to here. You might have to pay more for the raw resources, the raw material. But like I say, there's going to be innovation. Think about how much innovation and not just, what's the other word I'm looking for, but advancements in technology where a lot of it gets taken up through regulatory capture or all these added costs that government keeps imposing on the businesses. If government was imposing all those added additional costs, then those businesses could turn and use that as a way to supplement or increase the wages for their employees, right? Or to reduce the sticker price of their vehicles. So there's lots of ways in a proper market environment where, yes, maybe first there would have to be some retooling. There would have to be, but like I say, that is the beautiful thing about an actual free market. If you give the ability to actually, affect and change things, then like the entrepreneurs, these business owners, these creators, these innovators, they will figure it out. They have throughout all of, basically since the industrial revolution started, they've done it all along, right? People back in the day, they said, what are we going to do if there's no longer slaves to pick the cotton? Well, look, they come up with these magic machines, right? That go out and do it instead. There's this
one person can do a whole field in a day compared to.
Exactly. And there will always be ways. And even when people worry about, like, I don't even worry about when you're talking about robots taking over. Because if it does get to the point where there's a substantial portion of the population of any country that doesn't have anything to do, like I say,
entrepreneurs will rise up and find things to create.
Yeah, they will. And they will, like I say, because not only is it in their own best interest or their bottom line, but they see it's beneficial for society or communities at large. Because even myself, like if I was a business owner in a community and there's a whole lot of people that are, are starving to death, I'm worried about that they might steal from me. So I'm going to be, if I'm a business owner, it's like, well, what can we do to make sure that these people, can provide for themselves and not have to steal from me? So like I say, this is stuff that can all be figured out in a free market environment, but it's just a matter of convincing these younger people today that no, it's not scary to take government's hands off the economic wheel. It's actually that invisible hand of Adam Smith works. And it doesn't have to rely on the benevolence of the butcher, the baker, as he suggested, or altruism. Is they'll do it for their own best interest, but their best interest rests and relies on your best interest as well, because it's going to be real hard to try to earn customers or people that are going to work for your institution if you don't incentivize them properly, right?
Well, that's like where I work. I work for PepsiCo in the snacks division is actually my full-time job, and we've brought in more and more automation in the last couple of years. Everyone's like, oh, it's going to cost jobs, but it's not. Like we still have the exact same amount of staff, just doing different jobs, and they're being trained to do other things. So they're more valuable in the workforce than just doing one thing. Right.
Well, I mean, YouTube, just this, and I'll tie it up because I know we've been going on there. So we're going on 2 hours now. But anyways, I'm enjoying the conversation. But I mean, even YouTube. YouTube obviously has been disrupted in some ways, but it's also caused millions of people to be able to make a profit and earn a living from the safety and comfort of their own home with very minimal. Now, I haven't got that point. I'm still down real low, right? But go ahead.
Well, I try to share as much as your stuff as I can on YouTube or from Facebook and Twitter. I try to advertise as much as I can, but it's when you mention how people make a living off of YouTube now, I'll tell you another thing people are making a living on in universities or even given scholarships for it, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, is these esports. So people are actually playing sports games competitively and making money. Universities are giving scholarships for it. Yeah, there's like Mixer and I can't remember the other streaming site. There's actually like people have large followings and they make millions of dollars a year. Some people make millions of dollars a year just sitting at home in a chair with a nice headset on, playing video games.
Nice. Well, that's like to me, that's a beautiful thing. And sometimes I look at it and I even wonder and question myself. It's like, but that once again, that value, it's subjective, right? Some people find that stuff valuable, and if they're more than willing to voluntarily pay for it, it's like some of those rich people with those piece of art that's worth like $10 million. I was like, geez, man,
I don't even understand what it is.
It's like, what the hell is that? But hey, listen, like that's the beautiful thing about a market is whatever someone wants to perceive as valuable, then as long as it's voluntary and that interaction happens under the voluntary means, then go for it. You do your thing. But that's the thing, like you say, people that are worried about these things aren't thinking about the fact, and it tells me that they have no faith in humanity whatsoever, which, like I say, I get that, humans can do bad things, but we're also very capable of some amazing things as well. So to me, I don't rely on everyone doing the right thing, but I do at least acknowledge and recognize that if you properly incentivize, just like, and I mean, parents should if you're a parent, you should know anyways. It should be like second nature for you to understand that incentive is what matters. Like if you want your kids to do right, now you could try. I mean, the parents that tried doing with the kids that you want them to do the right thing all the time and they just beat them all the time. Well, no, all you did was get them to do the right thing when they're around you, because
you created and in the long term, you created a subservient person who's probably not going to be usually that, that valuable in the workforce. They're going to do whatever they're told instead of thinking for themselves.
Exactly. Whereas if you incentivize them properly so that they feel that they're gaining or earning or at least, getting some kind of reciprocal effect, which is what, market economics does, because nobody would engage economically if they didn't realize, the old expression that you got the pencil, I got the dollar. Well, if we decide to make that exchange, we're doing it because I want the freaking pencil and you want the dollar. So there you go. We walk away and I feel like I've benefited. You feel like you've benefited. Meanwhile, we both benefit. So it wasn't even a zero-sum game. There was mutual benefit to each of us, but that's the beauty of the market. And like I say, that incentive is baked right into it by sheer fact that you're going to want to do that, because not everyone's going to want to have 1,000 pencils and no dollars.
I think society is, for some reason, has switched to this kind of entitlement factor with some things too. I got a funny story. When I was a kid, I remember I was like probably 10, 12 years old, and I'm 30 now. My parents were like, oh, it's kind of time for you to start to mow the yard. And I'm like, oh, sweet. I'm going to have a nice lawnmower. No, I had like a push mower with no motor the first time I mowed the yard, the first couple times. And then eventually when I got good at it, then I got the actual, normal lawnmower with a motor. Right.
Yeah.
And if I miss anything, well, then I didn't get paid the full amount. And that's transitioned into the workforce. Like when I go to work, if people ever see me go to work, my uniform's always neat and tidy. I'm never late. I'm always on time. I work overtime, and if you make a mistake, you own up to it. You don't just, hide away from it or blame someone else,
Yeah.
You need to have personal responsibility and not just expect a handout from everyone or someone to look after you all the time. I think that's where society has gone, unfortunately, for the younger generation.
Yeah. Well, actually, you just made me think of a quote that I actually wrote down. Let me just remember or get it here again, because it's, I think it was an Ayn Rand quote. But it's so important. And this is something that I think anyone, and like I say, I'll tie this up, and I really appreciate you coming having this conversation with me today, Mitchell. But this is something, especially if there are any of the younger people or anyone actually, for whatever age you are that's watching the stream, and it's so true, is self-esteem is a precondition for freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what you were talking about there, it actually is very important. Now, obviously you don't want people to be egotistic, but yeah, if you don't have any self-worth, right, then like you were kind of alluding to a little bit earlier, that makes you the sacrificial lamb for any fool that comes along. But yes, if you teach people, and you know what, that proper incentive, that market-oriented incentivizing of people where they actually benefit and gain, that's a big problem with these people on the left when they talk about, inequality. I'm very glad that there's inequality, because that means we're actually incentivizing the people that want to strive for success, right, and not rewarding the ones that don't. Like, it's not that I got anything against the people that maybe in a race comes in 10th place, but actually the reason why I want it set up so the one in first place wins the prize and the one in 10th place doesn't, is to incentivize the one in 10th place to try to better for themselves in some way. And once they've done that and they've gone up to the 9th place, 8th place, that gives them, they're like, hey, I put in that work and it was rewarding. I benefited as a consequence of putting in that work. Whereas if you just give everybody gets a prize, right? It's like, well, first of all, you've destroyed the incentive for anyone to put in the work. And then the one that has the natural tendency to put in the hard work regardless is now going to be punished for doing so. Like, now you flip things upside down to the point where I don't even know what, and this is basically, expand that out today. That is basically the kind of society that we live in. Predominantly, not everyone, but that does seem to represent a large portion of our population of people with that. If I can't have it, nobody else can. Right?
I think the one thing that kind of drives me more so from the left, one of the left arguments is this pay gap. I don't get it. Like, if you take the whole numbers, and yes, on average, men do make more money than women, but that's not because the same job is being paid less. Like, where I work, there's plenty of women and men in my department, and if you have the same qualifications, you're paid the same amount of money. But where the separation is most men tend to be more CEOs. And it's not because the world is sexist. It's You know, if you listen to Jordan Peterson, more men will sacrifice time at home to thrive more,
Yep.
where women still have, whether it makes sense, it's not sexist, that women have a
Yep.
maternal instinct to look after the family. So they're
Yep.
willing to sacrifice a couple more years and take a little more time to do things. And men are, where men more worried about their career for the most part.
Yeah. And not only that, but because me and my wife talked about this, especially when they were really hammering on that, like was about a year or so ago, when they were really hammering away on that.
They still are.
Yeah, right. But yeah, even my wife was talking with it. Like, there's a million things that I can think of, and like I say, there are exceptions to the rule and outliers. But there's so many things I can think of that guys, especially, you know, tend to be, especially in their younger years, with the balls of steel and that crazy kind of courage. And like I say, it doesn't mean that women don't have it, but you got guys out there. Yeah, I'll climb that 1,000-foot antenna to change that light bulb up there, right?
With one chain on, a little bit of strap, a little bit of protection.
Yeah. Whereas, and not saying that there aren't women that'll do it too, right? Of course there are, but you know, whereas my wife's like, hell no, you could. There's not enough you could pay me. Whereas me, I might do it. I might require a little more money. And you might have to incentivize me more, right? But I would probably be willing to do it. And what it is the guys are kind of predisposed to take on more challenges. And I guess it goes back to like the way we evolved as hunter gatherers, and like you say, the mother being the nurture. It has nothing to do with the sexism. It's just biological drivers that are built in us. Now,
you can't change it. It probably will never change unless, you know.
Right. Well, not unless we evolve that way, which requires a tremendous amount of time. Yeah. But to think that you're just going to change like human biology and the evolutionary, like how that evolved over or hundreds of thousands of years, or however long you want to say, like to think that you're going to change that just by having a good political campaign. Yeah, that's not going to happen, which is why, like I say, that's the thing about the free market is I don't have to rely on bullshit premises that people come up with. I don't have to rely on, like I say, the butcher, the baker that's going to want to bake the bread because he wants to do it for me. No, he wants money. He wants to be able to feed his family. So he bakes bread, and rather than bake one loaf of bread, it's like, hey, I'm a good bread baker. People like my bread. I can bake 9 more, sell those 9, and then I have enough money to buy my family, I don't know, some new clothing, and my wife a new dress or something. But yeah, that's the beautiful thing. I don't have to rely on everyone being good people. I just need people to be properly incentivized, and that's what the market provides. Anyways, man, I know, and like I say, I could keep you on here for frickin' days. No, I'm just kidding, but I'll tie this up now. But I appreciate you coming and having this conversation with me. We kind of deviate away from it towards the end here, but that's all good. Like I say, we can have this conversation again another time if you want and talk.
I'd love to be back. It's been a good conversation.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I say, I thoroughly enjoy talking to people, especially people like I recognize, and that's kind of why I'm hoping that maybe other PPC supporters will kind of remember I'm still around too, because like I say, folks, we can't just wait for this time to check the box. We got to really do whatever we can. And if we get our minds together, you know, we can be creative and innovative and think of lots of different ideas or solutions to help get us out from underneath this stuff. And if we can do that, like I say, and lead by example, then that politics will follow. It'll automatically, because you get more and more people in your little locality, in your community, or in your province to start thinking more quickly about these issues. And how that happens is for us to engage in dialogue like we're doing here today, because that's what other people need to see this, right? Because if it's absent, if they're going throughout their day, every day, day after day, without hearing these kind of conversations, then they're not being properly informed. And this is something that they really should hear.
They'd be in their own echo chamber, just listening to the same echo over and over. And I mean, don't get me wrong, when I was younger, I was a victim of that too. I didn't want to listen to what, you know, as a young brother, I didn't want to listen to anyone had to say. It was like, no, here's how it's going to be. I'm never going to change my mind. And there's a lot of things I have changed my, mind on. And I've realized, hey, maybe that wasn't the best way to think, but I'm a lot more open-minded now. Like I'm never going to, become a Green Party member or anything like that. But at least I know I'm listening to some of the things, like, even, as much as I'm opposite of the NDP, there are some things that the NDP have that are good ideas. Yep. But they push it too far. Like I agree, like dental shouldn't be covered for everyone, but at least, maybe low income people and people under 18 have it covered for them. But not everyone. We can't afford to, have everything free. We can't be like Bernie Sanders, for example. We can't have those people. I mean, free university for everyone. We'll just tax the upper 1%. Well, if you tax the upper 1%, that wouldn't cover all the education in the state of Texas. Nonetheless, the entirety of the United States.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but even when they put forth those premises, I mean, the fact that did you not realize there's a reason why there's all kinds of offshore tax havens around the world, because governments and these rich people all set it up so that no matter how much you try to go after their wealth, they're in a position that they can hide it from you, so, or protect it in some way. So yeah, it's a fool's errand to even think that you're going to be able to somehow, like, even if you could try to pretend, like they had 95, decades ago, they had at the upper echelons down in the U.S. and stuff. I think at one point, was it between World War I and World War II, was it, I believe, or whatever, where the tax rates were up to like 90%. But if you look at how many people actually paid it, like, I can write something on a piece of paper anytime, right? Doesn't mean that who's actually paying 90% taxes. Well, most of the wealthy people at that time weren't handing over
taxes.
So it's like, oh, whoop-a-doo, it sounds good in theory.
and they still don't. I mean, look at all the buyouts loopholes in the taxes that Amazon and Google gets.
Exactly.
Guy's a billionaire and he pays probably less taxes than someone that makes $200,000.
Exactly. So it's a fool's errand to think that you're going to be able to do it that way. And basically, even if you could make the utilitarian argument for you, you'd still get with the other argument that you just brought up, which is, it still wouldn't even be enough to pay for all this crap. So yeah, stop with that. Listen, what we need to do is, rather than keep stealing from other people's pies, just create our own pie. We need more and more pies. That's what we need to do. Right. And I get it. There is a finite amount of pies on planet Earth, but hey, if we run out of pies on planet Earth, Elon Musk is already halfway there. Mars, baby. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, like I say, I really appreciate you having this conversation with me, Mitchell. I am going to tie it up now because I think most people have kind of dropped off the stream anyways.
All right.
But you have yourself a great day. And like I say, if you ever want to have a chat again, we'll do that. And we can talk about, like I say, it doesn't even have to be about politics. You can talk about anything you want.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
No problem. Have a good one, buddy. Okay, let me just, there we go. Okay, folks, I'm sorry if I didn't get to anyone in the chat. As you know, I enjoy having these conversations, and I like to be actively engaged with whoever's on the other side of it. And I know there's not too many people left in the stream when we only got 14 there now, but I do want to just say, I see Ken Rose is in the chat. Somebody is in the chat. Ian Myers, what's going on? Jeremy W. Jake Fillmore. Hey, Mr. G Rich, what's going on? Zach. Micah W. Stevie, machines need maintenance. Yeah, exactly. Eugene Harder, check out CBC's article on Epoch Times. What a crock. Yeah, actually, I covered that in my stream yesterday there, Eugene. If you want to check my stream yesterday, or like I say, just look on my social media pages, or just cover it yourself there. But anyways, thanks for everyone that showed up. And like I say, I really appreciate the conversation I had with Mitchell here today. And hopefully, like I say, hopefully some of the PPC folks will kind of put some of their differences aside and realize, listen, we all have, or at least I would suspect or hope that we all have the right intentions, is to at least start head towards more freedom and more liberty, more personal responsibility. And like I say, we're going to have to kind of use each other if we're going to get that. And like I say, there's lots of things that we can do, but we can't all be just sitting functioning in our echo chambers. We have to actively engage, have dialogue, and do things that embolden and inspire people to want to jump on board with on the liberty train, if you want to call it. Anyways, everyone have yourself a good day. I'll see you in the next stream. Actually, the next stream is going to be tomorrow at 12 p.m. Is it Eastern time? Let me just double check on that, folks. Did I write that one down? Maybe I didn't write that down. Oh, yeah, I did. Yeah, here we go. $12 p.m. Eastern time. Going to be having a kind of informal debate or discussion with this gentleman from ThinkSpot in regards to the guaranteed income. So that should be quite interesting at the very least. Anyways, like I say, thanks for everyone that showed up. Y'all have yourself a good day. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.